Well, welcome back, folks. Let me start off by saying Happy New Year. It's been a little bit since I was live, and this is the night where I was able to get back on. Quite a weekend of playoff games leading up to what we're going to see next weekend in Arrowhead. A matchup with these Colts, and I know there's a lot of trepidation about the Colts as an organization and the playoff history. So hey, uh, you know let's not worry too much about that because it is a completely different team, completely different year on both sides. What's up, Gary Holland? How are you doing? Happy New Year to all of you. Tonight, Four Noses Brute IPA on tap for me. Hope you all have something nice for you. I got to tell you, I'm ready for this game as well. This whole, oh, sorry. Yeah, hey, truth hurts. I'm a Jayhawk. I know. It's all right. Just ignore everything below the neck, I guess. Um, if you guys want to hit those questions, hold, give me just a couple of minutes. We'll go through a couple of things. So just want to hit that. Vodka. Okay. If that works for you, that works for you. It's been an interesting weekend, right? And with the Chiefs having some time off, they've gotten to the point where, hey, pylon, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Don't hear people who've been here from the beginning very often. It was something that I started almost on a whim because my guys on the podcast didn't want to do video. So, it kind of started this channel on a whim and it's really turned into be something great. And I love talking to all of you guys. It's an awesome way to communicate. So we will talk tons of Chiefs. Am I nervous about it? I don't get nervous really. I think that it's easily a winnable game. It's also one that could trip them up. So you have to be careful. And I know for you guys, this is something that has been coming for a long time. So we should talk nuts and bolts, or at least what we know right now, because we still got to find out a couple of things about Sammy Watkins, about Spencer Ware. Some of those are going to be there, but in general, we'll go through what we saw this weekend and go from there. So, it's one of those deals where you look at a lot of these matchups had happened before. The Colts came out, played well. They took care of business. I thought they had the advantage going in, but they certainly proved it more so than I thought they would. I had expected that to be a tight game with the Houston Texans, and I can't remember what it ended up. It was 21-7. It was 21-0 at one point, as far as I remember. Way more than I thought it was going to be. So I agree with you, Cool Mars. We do need to break that curse, and you guys can help a lot with that. I feel like this is a game where Arrowhead Stadium is going to play a pivotal role in how this game is played and how it's won. So everybody that's going to be there screaming your head off. It's going to be important. The Colts overdid it. I feel like they played better than even I thought they would. And Jacob, that's a great question. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. Folks, hold your questions for just a few minutes. Let me get my thoughts out, and then we'll start going through the questions, or I'm going to miss all these early ones. I think the Colts overplayed what I expected them to. I think the Texans underplayed, obviously, but what it sets them up to is they have some confidence coming in, particularly that running back. I think that's important, although Seth Kaiser would argue with me. And folks, if you want to hear an interesting debate, hit the Locked On Chiefs podcast, particularly on Tuesday. But all this week we have some great guests. We're going to talk with an old friend, Jake Arthur, on the podcast on Wednesday, I think. And Jake is the BJ Kissel of the Colts. Jake and I worked together on a site a few years ago, and he's ascended up the ranks, and he is their in-house reporter for Indianapolis. I'm going to get as much information out of him as humanly possible, and like I said, we go back. He'll give us some of the skinny. That is a team that I think has really progressed as we've seen it go along. Hey, 150 DB, I'll take that every time. If you can get them up there, that's on you. You lead it, Mike, Dustin as well. And I think what we've seen is that the progression of the Colts has really been, I won't say miraculous, but it's been more than I expected. I think Frank Reich has done a very admirable job. I think Frank's been a little underrated in what he's done. Certainly not everything has worked. If you listen to Therese, Therese will tell you just how, there's at least a good 5% of that stuff that doesn't work. And I think it's a little bit more than that, but that's me. But he's got some creativity there, and he's got that particular offense running, I think, just about as well as it can with the personnel that it has. Obviously, Luck looks like he's back to full strength. And Luck is really the cog, the single thing, much like Mahomes, this is going to turn out to be a quarterback battle as far as I can tell. So keep an eye on that. But, they have some interesting bit players that are going to come along. I think the big difference is that old friend of the Chiefs, Chris Ballard, has gone in there and taken over the roster and taken on the GM slot. I think Chris Ballard has done a heck of a job in trying to get them ready to be a playoff team. I think they're a year ahead of schedule in Indianapolis, and I think that's going to show itself here in these playoffs. But give Chris Ballard a whole lot of credit. Came up through the ranks, was in Kansas City for a long time, and that's critically important. There's a lot of ties there. This isn't the same team that came back on them last time, so I don't anticipate the same kind of thing. This is a team that has to keep up with this thoroughbred offense the Chiefs have. And with an extra week of rest, I feel like Sammy Watkins is going to play. Just a hunch on my part. We have no news, no anything. And Ronnie, you just asked the question. I appreciate that. We have no news. We have no confirmation. We have no inklings from anybody in the media. Nobody's talking. And I've talked to several of the beat reporters, and nobody has a point where they're willing to say, yes, he's going to play. But I feel like he's going to. I think that rest has paid off. It might be a situation where he plays very sparingly, or he plays the first series or two. If they get out to lead, maybe they rest him. Hopefully he doesn't re-injure like he did last time he tried to start a game and had to go back out. That's significant. It's the longer term Sammy Watkins is, you want to keep him all the way down to the Super Bowl. If he were not to play, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think this Indianapolis Colts team is beatable without Sammy Watkins. And I think if he needs another week, then hey, then it needs another week. That's just the way it is. If you have him for the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl, that's where you need him the most. I haven't heard anything on LDT. I see some of you asking questions there. They're scrolling pretty good right now, so let me keep up. And remember, if you want to make a donation to the channel, feel free to hit that super chat in there anytime you like. I appreciate all that. And you guys have done some great things. I have a new light working here tonight just for the lives. You saw my new lighting setup in Kansas City while I was there working on Jason Tracy photo in his studio. And all that's thanks to you all making contributions to the site, helping me get this thing moving forward still. So thank you. Now, LDT haven't heard anything about. I think that it's right on the borderline. He came out of the boot a couple weeks ago. He's generally a tough guy. I think he's very night and day. Like, he understands his own prognosis. And I think that's important. So he's not going to push himself if he's still in danger of re-injury or if he feels anything that might lead him to feel like that. But at the same time, if he's just talking about pain management, he feels that he's stable and his joints are good and he's ready to roll. I think Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is a guy that will play through if it's just pain management. We will see. We should find out at the latest on Tuesday, but I think we will find out some news on Monday afternoon of what we think is going to happen in terms of the injuries. Spencer Ware as well. I think Spencer Ware is going to make it back. I don't think he should be the lead back. We could just talk about that now. I'm getting close to 300 people in here. Thank you all for coming. If you're new, just jump in, hit the question marks before your question, and I'll try to get to it and make sure that I answer them all. Spencer Ware's a good back. I don't feel he's is as explosive as he was. Sorry, cottonmouth tonight. I don't feel he's as explosive as he was previous to the injury, but he's still a quality back, and he can still make yardage for you. I don't think he's a guy that you can lean on to really exploit a defense. He's a grinder at this point, as far as I can tell. But I do feel that he and Damian Williams provide that punch because Damian's not a grinder. He's done some good things inside the tackles in terms of getting loose and getting that kind of slippery yardage. But he's really an off-tackle guy, a speed guy, get to the edge type of guy. And he can be matched with Spencer and with Darrell Williams. I still feel that, man, it's because he's young, but I feel like Darrell's a guy that's going to pay off for this team down the stretch quite a bit. And he hasn't gotten enough touches yet, in my opinion, but he will. And I think that's coming. And he's another guy like Spencer that you can run between the tackles and grind some things out. But you've seen on that touchdown that he scored in the flat, he's a good pass catcher. He has the acceleration for a guy his size that's pretty exceptional. I think he's got a lot in his future, and it may come down to these playoffs where a guy with fresh legs who hasn't hardly played all season may be the difference maker in the run game and in that pass game when Pat Mahomes needs to do some outletting. There are going to be teams that are going to drop eight guys into coverage, and the backs are going to have to pick up that slack in the pass game. Start seeing some questions come in here. A lot of motion comes back to the offense. I think it definitely does. Cool, Mars. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. I think there is a lot of motion that comes back into the offense. I think it can be something that really sets them apart. Kelvin Benjamin, a couple of people asking about Kelvin. And I feel like I just don't know. I felt like he kind of short-armed a couple of routes, quit on a couple of routes in that last game, and had an opportunity to make a big play, and he wasn't able to. I'd like to see him kind of step up to that. He made big plays in college. I think he still has the capability. I don't know where his head's at. He's still learning the offense clearly, so I can't say that you can like really press him on that. But want to see more out of him. Okay, I'm going to start reading questions here in a bit. I just want to make some general notes. The next film room, I kind of split it this week just because I had time and I was traveling. So we did the offensive film room. We'll do defensive film room here in a couple of days, and it's going to be a lot of the linebackers and a look at Ward. We'll talk about them in a bit. But I want to hit some of your questions here. I'm seeing Kelvin Benjamin talked about him. I think he's going to get more touches, but he's got to come through or else they need to not go to him. Demarcus Robinson is making plays sometimes. Kelvin Benjamin has to show that he can do the same or else he doesn't deserve the reps. That's all there is to it. Do you think the Colts will play zone defense and will it be a problem for the Chiefs? Patrick Mahomes hasn't had trouble with zone. There have been times when some of the catches have been contested. Kelce's had a couple of games that weren't quite top of it, but they will play zone a lot in Indianapolis. They will throw some monkey wrenches in there too and play some man. I expect to see some cover 4 looks that can convert into man as well. And they're just going to try to do that sporadically to try to get an advantage on a per play basis. But that's not going to bother Patrick Mahomes. He's had a whole lot of success against particularly cover 2 as well as some cover 4 this season. So don't let that bother you. Williams, Golden Patriot, how are you? Andy Humberg, how are you? Do I expect a shootout? You know, that's a very good question. I think it could come down to that. At the same time, if the Chiefs can get their pressure set up, especially, I really liked what I saw from Reggie Ragland in that last game against the Raiders, pressuring up the middle. If they continue to do that, if they use a 4-man rush with Houston and Ford outside, Jones in that tackle spot, and rotate the other tackle spot, then you want to bring extra pressure, bring Reggie right up the A-gap. Andrew Luck is susceptible to that too. Every quarterback is. And I think that's a good way to go about it. I hope to see that. We'll see what Bob actually decides to do. There's been a whole lot of talk about Bob. We'll see how he responds. What do you think? There was a significant drop in defensive production from 2016. Some of it, yes, Derek Johnson slowed down, but he was a leader. He got people lined up. 2016 was a year where Eric Berry, was in a position to do some things. I'm sorry. Was that 2017? I'm losing years here. But it's an experience thing. It's the complexity of the defense combined with experience that lets you be in the right place to play the right technique, to understand your assignment. I think that's a lot of it. I also feel like, especially at the second level, at the linebacker level, these guys are being asked to play passively. They're being asked to read a lot, to not attack downhill. And again, I'll have some of that in the film room here in a couple of days. So keep an eye out for that video. I think Barry is going to make a difference. I think that's pretty easily stated because he always does when he's there. Tony Brisbane, the Colts look like the Chiefs early season. Hey, that's a good point. I was worried they were going to shut down. The Colts were the last team I wanted to see. Is it our best matchup? I think clearly the Chargers are a worse matchup because the Chargers have had success against them. They have enough athleticism on the Chargers at every position. I think they're more of a worry than the Colts are. The Colts have a couple of players. I think Eric Ebron has had a good season, and tight ends have given this defense some problems over the years, but this year especially as well. A lot comes down to whether Eric Berry's on the field or not. So keep that in mind. Also, T.Y. Hilton has speed that you just can't match. That's where I personally feel like he overmatches. Orlando Scandrick should not be starting. I don't think that he will. but he overmatches speed on Scandrick point blank. He overmatches Steve Nelson on speed. In fact, even Kendall Fuller, who is the best cover corner on this team, he doesn't have the speed to keep up with T.Y. in the open field. The only guy that does is Ward. Tremont Smith, yes, but I don't feel like Tremont Smith is playing up to his speed. I don't think he knows where he's supposed to be. I don't think he's playing instinctively. I think he's playing slow. I feel like Ward has caught on faster and is able to play up to his physical speed. And I think he has a better chance of staying with T.Y. And I won't say that they'll travel him and make him cover T.Y. Down in, down out, but I think he has the best chance, especially on some of those long crossers they like to run. That you've seen those over the years. I think he has a chance to stay with him. He's going to need it. And the safeties have to play disciplined football on the back end, whether they play a lot of cover two, and I think they will sprinkle in some cover two, or whether they stick to the single high. And if Barry's back there, I think they're going to be all right. Continuing questions. Dan Bailey, thank you. Appreciate the donation. I thank you for checking it out. I will try to hit your question. Make sure, call my attention. I will try to scroll here. Once I get scrolling, things kind of get a little wonky sometimes. So I think Barry will play against the Colts there, Ronnie. I don't think there's any way that you can keep him off the field, to tell you the truth. Drew Bishop. I guess I worry because the Seahawks remind me of the Colts. Above average on both sides of the ball. Not very different. I don't think the Chiefs should have let the Seahawks win that game. There's a lot of breakdowns. Talented, yes, I won't argue with that at all. But I do feel like that was a game the Chiefs had to win, and they just didn't get it done. Is Ward trending upward? Yeah, I really think that he is. Does that make him a starter? No, I still don't think that he's starting material yet. He's being forced into action because he's the best that they have, the best option that they have right now. They still have to go get 2 new corners next season. I don't expect Steven Nelson back, and they need to get some quality guys that are locked down in one way or the other. It depends who the coordinator is. We'll talk about that in the offseason. Who else? What else you got? Does Scandrick play? I think Scandrick does play, but only in a secondary role. If there's an injury or if they want to play a lot of zone, Scandrick can still play zone without holding, knock on wood. It depends on the referee situation as well. You can let him play if they're letting things go a little bit more. So, Ruben, I like your question. Hit that. Larry Heimer, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, Sammy is still on the injured list. They'll update that probably Monday afternoon, definitely by Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that. The coach should never let the Ravens back in the game. That's true. Everybody has their faults, and everybody has little matchup differences. I think what the Ravens showed you, that they're able to put a lot of people in some precarious positions and make them do things that they're probably not used to, and I think that's what feeds them in. The mobility of Lamar Jackson is just so unique. It's going to tax teams for a number of years, especially if they can get him to the mechanical point where he can throw the ball well. Every now and then you see him have some zip. He had one against the Chiefs that I thought was a great throw, but down in, down out, he just doesn't have the control of the ball right now. I do think, Carlos Ruiz, appreciate that follow-up question. I do think that it's not going to be a single guy. I think they're going to move Hilton around, but they like to run slot routes for Hilton, so that would be more Fuller. I think on the outside, you might see Ward. The question is going to be, can Steven Nelson be physical when they get Hilton on him? Because that's what Steven has to do. He doesn't have the speed to stick with him in a foot race, so he's got to be physical. He's got to redirect him and kind of cut off of his routes. What if they played Benjamin off a tight end? I think they can. I think they can line them up as a tight end, especially as a standing H-back type. So I look to see that. We don't have any confirmation, Cool Mars, that Ward is starting, but that's my expectation. That is just my expectation. So not to put that out. JL Infigure, thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. Southwestchester. I'm not sure where Westchester is. If that's England, please let me know and tell Brad that I mentioned it. Chiefs fan in Mizzou in Texas. Hey, good luck down there. I know those Texans are hard on people. LDT, Barry, all playing. Yeah, Pater, I agree with you. I think they should be all playing. Cody Irwin, I can make the film room videos longer. A lot of folks have said that they don't really like them over like 15, 18 minutes. So I'm trying to keep them tight a little bit now, especially if I need to focus on offense and defense. But I will continue that in the offseason, and I'll definitely have some longer ones when we look at year review and that kind of stuff. Oh, wow. Bubba Bug went to the last Colts game. That's impressive. A lot has changed, and I'm glad you bring that up. That perspective is unique. I don't buy into the curse thing because every team is different. Literally, even teams that have 10, 12 starters return, the rest of the team is different, and I think that changes everybody every year. So I'm glad you brought that up, Bubba. And Cody, thank you for your comment. I will try to work on making some of those longer for you. Chiefs in Austin, good for you. Our success in the playoffs, and specifically against the Colts, is going to weigh heavily on Ward, Lucas, Ragland, and Hitchens. Due to scheme, those positions have been the problem. Drew Bishop, I do agree for the most part. I will put a caveat on that I feel like the inside linebackers have been limited by the scheme and by the call from the coordinator. And I think that's an important distinction to make. But yes, I agree with you. Lucas, not so much. I don't feel like Lucas is as sound fundamentally. You'll see that in the film room here in a couple of days. There's still a lot of times where he doesn't know where he's supposed to be. It's still picking up the defense. I'm not as sold on him, particularly in the box, as a lot of people are. But, that's just me being crusty. Don't let it bother you. Yep, Sammy is still on the list. Did Marlon Mack worry you? Yeah, I like Marlon Mack. I liked him coming out of the draft. I liked him in fantasy. He has a tendency. He can hurt you if he gets going. This defense has to hit him early and stop their momentum. If the offense can get out to a lead and make them have to throw more, that's going to pay off big, big dividends. Trying to hit all your questions here, folks. Keep them coming. That was Michael Brown. Dylan Dawson. So the Colts had the least amount of sacks allowed. We are tied for first in sacks. How do you think the D-line matches up with their O-line? I think the most intriguing matchup is Chris Jones against the new, and I'm totally drawing a blank on his name now, their left guard, the beast out of Notre Dame. He was my top lineman in this last draft. Just a monster. That's going to be great because he's got power. He's got some athleticism, but he is susceptible to speed rushes. I think particularly on the inside, and I think that's something Jones does very well. So I feel like Jones has an equal footing, if not a slight advantage in terms of the pass rush. In the run game, I feel like the Colts are in good shape to run on the interior there, not at Noddy, but at Jones. And we'll see how they attack it. But I think you can look for some of that, especially if it's a tie ball game or they're within striking distance. Again, the Chiefs need to build that lead in order to keep them from running the ball down their throats. Cool Mars, I agree. The Chiefs do have more weapons. I wouldn't call Indy's pass rush good. Teray is a rookie. They play him a lot, and I don't know that he is able to combat people like Schwartz and Fisher. He is athletic, but he's pretty light still, and I don't think that he has enough power moves to counter what athletic tackles can do to him. So I think it's going to be up to the defensive coordinator to be a little more creative. And if they do twists and things, if you're talking about Wiley and maybe Jeff Allen playing, that's something you can worry about. Twists and stunts are going to be problems for the Chiefs guards unless LDT and Cam Irving are in there, and even somewhat if Cam Irving's in there anyway. So we'll see who actually gets the ball game, and we should know a little bit here in a couple of days on the practice reports. Who else? What do you got? Is the key to slow the Colts offense down to blitz Luck? Luck handles the blitz pretty handily. Really, it's to get instant pressure on him so that he has to take his first read or his release read, hit that hot route rather than have time to survey the defense. So I feel like D Ford has the advantage and can use his speed to get instant pressure. And I feel like Noddy's a little underrated at what he can do jumping into gaps. And Chris Jones in particular can get into those A gaps and put some instant pressure on Luck. And I think that's key. That part of it is key to making Luck hit the easy routes and not have time to go deep to Hilton. Hilton's the guy that scares me deep. Inman's is a guy too that I think also that needs to be watched for. Completely. John Collins, thank you for your donation. And John asks, if Barry starts, do you think Lucas should play with him? With Fuller, Ward, Nelson. Fuller, Ward, Nelson for sure. And I don't feel like Lucas should play with Barry. I feel like the best lineup they have going right now is Barry playing free and Sorensen playing up. If they want to stay in a double linebacker look, I would even look to see when they go 3 safety to make that third safety be Dorian O'Daniel. I want to see him on the field almost nonstop. As far as I can tell, he's good enough against the run that he can stop a guy like Marlon Mack, who's explosive, but he's not like a power runner. He doesn't have that voluminous kind of pressure behind him. But I feel like O'Daniel needs to be there for the pass all game long. That's going to be critical. Can the base defense provide enough pressure against the Colts front seven? The base defense certainly can. It's when they go into the nickel that you start to question it. I think they have to play some base because they have to be decent against the run. They don't have to make it an emphasis, but they have to have those D linemen running in and out really quickly because Indy's going to go. They like to use double tight end sets. They like to stack 2 and 2 with both tight ends on one side and both receivers on the other. So that causes some structure changes too, especially when you have a young guy like Ward in there at the edge corner. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It's got to be flexibility and it's got to be knowing your assignment. And that comes down to Lucas and the other young guys like O'Daniel knowing what they're doing. That's going to be what the bottom line is for me. John, I hope I answered your question well enough. I think Lucas is a great guy to have on this roster going forward. I just don't feel like you can rely on him to be the last line of defense right now. Jacob Calloway, along that line, can Barry keep the defense disciplined, the secondary in particular? And I think he can. I think he can be supportive. And I feel like with Ward out there, they have more explosiveness, more speed out there, and it looks like he takes direction well. And I think Sorensen knows when he's playing in the box, I think Sorensen knows his role fairly well. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of assignment breakdowns from him. It's when he plays deep that he has assignment breakdowns. And physically, I think, especially against tight ends, he's going to be okay. I think he could be key in trying to jam, especially Ebron, off of the line, keep him from getting into his routes because he's somebody that Luck looks to, especially in the red zone. So always watch that matchup as well. Bubba doesn't think that Watkins is going to return. I kind of feel like he is. It may depend on how deep they go. Ronnie, thank you. SSA Invincible. I think the Chiefs used the 2013 loss to Colts for extra motivation. Yeah, I certainly hope they do. I hope they showed some of that film. I hope they showed what happened so that not only Coach Reid, but all the players keep their foot on the gas the entire time. I think that's the key to them winning this ball game. Sammy J12, are we going into the game fully healthy? No, we can't say that. They're missing still at least 3 starters on offense. Defense, I gotta say, is healthy, but it's not up to par. Let's put it that way. So they have to make the most of what they have, and that's what they have to do. I won't say that they're fully healthy. No. Do we break the Elliott curse? I personally believe yes. I'm looking this to be a Chiefs win. I'll have my prediction for you on the Locked On Chiefs podcast later this week. And also, I have a sponsor coming for the channel who's been gracious enough to put some support to us. I hope you guys will consider supporting them. I'll announce them later in the week, so keep an eye out for that. John Jones, Colts don't look like the early Chiefs. Their defense has given up the least amount of points. At no time was the Chiefs defense that good. That's fair. The Chiefs offense is a juggernaut, though, and I even used that in the title of this last video. And I don't think that they've been successful against somebody that can run offense like that. Jeff Whitaker, do you think Andy telling Bob that if he is going to have a passive scheme in the playoffs is that he's gone for good? I don't think it works like that. I think he's probably pushing him. It feels like Andy Reid is pushing Bob on the player side, the personnel, who he lets get in the game more than what he does. But I have nothing to base that on. I'm just looking at the film. So got to remember that Bob has pretty much autonomy from Andy. This is the first time we've seen Andy Reid step in about the defense in any great detail. So it's something that's important as far as where that line is drawn. And I feel like Bob's still going to be able to call the game that Bob wants to call, for good or worse. Hit me with the questions. What's the priority for the draft next year? It's corner, edge rusher, linebacker, and wide receiver. I think they're going to lose a couple of guys. I'm not sold on what they're going to have as far as depth. So I look for them to garner another wide receiver as well. Do you think Justin Houston will have a big game against the Colts? I think he has the potential to. I like him versus Costanzo. So look for that. We'll see if I'm right or not. It's just a feeling. Is the defense that poor or the coaching? It's a bit of both. There's some talent holes and there's some coaching holes. It all comes together to be this kind of just try to keep him out of the end zone enough to let the offense do its thing. What's the beer choice today? Bryce Jackson, I'm glad you asked. This is from Four Noses in Broomfield, Colorado. This is their Brute IPA. John Collins, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And for your donation. This helps me keep going. I appreciate it. Chiefs are second in the NFL in sacks at home. Defense plays better at home. Robert Dalton, I hope you're right. And you just may be. What's the status on LDT? Adam Brown, I answered that a little bit. We don't know anything yet. We'll have more information later in the week. I'm not sure who you're talking about, Mike Miller. Sorry. What do you think about us drafting Julian Love? I haven't dug into the film at all. I've heard his name, but I can't tell you anything about him right now. This is the point in the season where usually this is the week where I start looking at film, but because the Chiefs have been so busy, and I have a big beer competition coming up this weekend where I'm entered in the big beers up in Breckenridge. So I do that every year, and it kind of takes a little bit of time. So I haven't dug into the film yet. What else? Chiefs are allowing 18 points at home. That's a very good point. And Casey King, I will post. It goes right back up. It's kind of an automated process. It does a couple of things and smooths out the video, hopefully for some of my lag, because I live in the country and my internet isn't the best. So it should fix some of that and then upload it. It'll be available. How do you stop the MAC? You run the base defense and you attack the gaps. That's what it is. You play aggressive football in defense. That's what it comes down to. Appreciate it, Robert Griggs. Bob gets let go. Okay, all right, Monk. I won't argue with you. I'm down with that. How do the Colts defense match up with the Chiefs offense? I think you're a little late to the party. I went over that all in the beginning of the video. It'll post here when we're done. We hit the half-hour mark, so I'm just about out, and that'll go back up. Special teams hasn't been as dominant, but they've been good. If they could pop one or two big plays, I think that will really help. Deontay, I appreciate that. I hope that you're right, or revenge or not. It's organizational memory at this point, right? Because none of these players were on that team as far as I remember. I might have one or two if I can really. There's always Colquitt. Sorry. I think the noise will bother the Colts, Jerry. I appreciate that you brought that up because it's an underrated piece. The crowd at Arrowhead has an impact on this game. That's why Chiefs are always one of those stadiums that teams practice for the stadium as much as the team. It's important, and it plays a big effect, especially when you're trying to communicate on offense. Didn't bring Armani Watts back. I just don't think he was physically ready, Armani Watts, to be ready to be full speed. And so I think they see him as a future player on this team, and they don't want to rush that or risk serious long-term injury. Would you rather see the Chargers or the Pats? Honestly, I think the Pats are the better matchup. I think the Chiefs can beat the Pats easier than they can beat the Chargers. Chargers are a quality team, so that's where I stand on that. Do you think the playoffs is too big a stage for Mahomes? No, I don't actually. I think he's one clearly thrown into it so early. He had some hiccups, but I don't think that's what it's about. I feel like he's going to bounce back in this postseason and play better in prime time. DOD in the spy role, I like that. Although I don't think you have to spy Luck per se, unless it's very situational every now and then. Okay, I talked about the D-line, old Bob Sutton. I like that you used that name. I talked about that earlier in the video. It's going to post up here in a minute when I'm done. It'll go back on. So, and by the way, you can check me out. I was on KSNT in Topeka there last week, and they had that video up there, and it looks like I might have something go with them over the off season. So keep an eye out for that. TZ, he just hasn't come back that we know of. Don't think he's fully healthy yet. And that's about Armani Watts, folks. So, Robert Griggs, appreciate that. Argo, appreciate that. Thank you all for your time. A little bit different when the Chiefs don't play, but 400 folks hanging out here. I'm going to let you all go at this point because I got beer to drink and dinner to eat, and my kids got to go to bed. So, hope you guys enjoyed the rest because now it starts to pick up speed. I'm not going to see the game live. I will not be doing a show right after. I will do one Sunday, so look for that. We'll have film room. We'll have game plan videos like normal this week. No change there. I'll let you all know how I do in the contest at the beer festival. And that's what I'll be doing during the game. So I'll have to play catch up from there. So thank you all for your time tonight. Check out the podcast for all that extra information and Matt Derrick over at Chiefs Digest. If you haven't gotten this yet, Matt got me a copy there while I was back. This is the book he wrote all on Mahomes. So it's everywhere. It's in high V. I mean, I can't walk 5 feet without finding it. So check that out and give Matt some props. He did a great job with that book. So thank you all for your time tonight. I had a good time. Hope you did. We'll be back next week and check out the videos coming this week. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you later.